Alright class, Mrs. Sorrells here. Mr. Nelson's been teaching. It's my turn again. Welcome back to Math TV over here. Today we're going to be talking about ordering fractions, and our goals today are going to be one, that students are going to generate common denominators for all fractions. Now, that wording is a little bit different than what's on your paper, so if you would please make sure your wording matches ours. So you are going to need to cross some things out and update that. Second thing is students will place the fractions in order based off the common denominators. Okay, and then we also might talk about comparing fractions because comparing and ordering tend to go together. Alright, when you order fractions, you need to make sure that all the fractions have a common denominator. Okay? The reason for this is because you can't compare order if they're all different sizes. For example, you can't compare these and tell me which is greater or less because they're all different size groups. Okay, I've got 3/5 and I've got 2/3. This one's in groups of 5 and this one's in groups of 3. Okay, another example would be, what if you had a pizza? We always use pizzas. That was cut into fourths. And what if we had pizza that was cut into eighths? I would probably get fired if I was the one cutting these pizzas. Alright, let's say I have 1/4 colored in and I have 3/8 colored in. I can't compare these because these pieces are smaller than the fourths. What I could do is multiply, create a equivalent fraction, and I get eighths, and look, now I have 2/8 colored in. Now I can compare. Okay, so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to come back to which is greater, 3/5 or 2/3, and you're going to answer that on your own in a little bit after you learn. Okay, how do you find a common denominator? I'm just going to write these first and then I'll show you an example. First, you do what's called a backwards L. So it's going to look like this on your paper. Then you're going to list the multiples of each denominator. Okay, that word should be ringing a bell in your head. We've done multiples before. The third thing is going to be to identify the LCM. Well, we've done that too. So we're using things that we've seen before this year. The fourth thing is going to be the LCM becomes the new, oops, already wrote that up there, common denominator. Alright, and then you're going to generate equivalent fractions by scaling up to the new common denominator. Scaling is either multiplying or dividing. Okay, but scaling is a word you will see 7th grade and 8th grade when you're working those years. So we're going to use the word scaling as well. Number 6, then you can compare and put them in numerical order. So again, you're going to see compare and order both today. Alright, if you need to pause and get caught up, feel free to do that. If not, we are moving on. Here's your example. I can't compare right now because they're different denominators, so it's not really fair. This pizza would be cut up into fifths, this one would have 8 pieces, and this one would have 10. So we've got to make them the same. Okay. First, you need to list your fractions or rewrite them vertically. Okay, your paper's going to need to look nice, neat, and organized. The second step is the backwards L, which is really your first step. So you box your fractions with the backwards L so that you can keep it organized again. Alright, then it says to list multiples of the denominators. So I'm going to list multiples of 5, 8, and 10 because those are my denominators. Alright, multiples 5 and plus 5 is 10. 5 more is 15. 5 more is 20. Add 5 more, you get 25. 30, 35, 40, and 45. And you say, well, when do I stop? Well, at least get a good list going so that you can start comparing. Okay, so 8 would be 8 plus 8 is 16. 8 more is 24. 8 more is 32. 40. 48. 56. And 10s are easy. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, etc. Alright, let's see if this list is good enough. I'm going to use this first list, and I'm going to try and find these numbers in all three lists. It can't just be in two, it has to be in all three. So there's only a 5 in this first list, so that doesn't work. There's a 10 in this list and this list, but not in this list. So that one doesn't work. Let's look for 15. 15 is only in this list, doesn't work. 20. 20 is in 5 and 10, but not 8 again. 25, only in the 5 list. 30 is in the 5 list and the 10 list, but not the 8 list, so that doesn't work. 35 is only in the 5 list, and then look what happens. There's a 40, a 40, and a 40. That's my LCM. And what that does is tell you that's your new common denominator. So you come over here to the outside of the L's, and you have determined that each fraction is going to become 40ths. Then you have to scale up. So I'm going from 5 to 40, creating an equivalent fraction, which means to multiply. I'm looking for 5 times blank equals 40, 8 times blank equals 40, and 10 times blank equals 40. Started to fill it in for you. Alright, 5 times 8. It's the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth number in the list. Okay. Whatever you do to the denominator, you have to do to the numerator. And so you also have to do 4 times 8, which is 32. Okay. 8 times 5 is 40, so then you have to do 6 times 5 as well. You get 30. 10 times 4. And then you also have to do 4 times 4 is 16. Here's the trick. I now have my 3 new fractions, and I can compare because I have the same denominators, but I have to remember that 32 40ths was originally 4/5. Okay, and 16 40ths was originally 4/10, and 30 40ths before I scaled up was 6/8. And so when you find your answer, it's going to be using the original fraction, so you need to keep that in mind. Alright, I can see that 16 is the least out of 40. I can ignore the denominators because they're all the same, so I'm just looking at numerators. 16 is first, then we would have 30, and then we would have 32. So our list, in order, our final answer would be the first one was originally 4/10. Second place here would be 6/8. And third is 4/5. It was 32 out of 40ths, but remembering that 4/5 was the original fraction. Okay, so this would be our final answer. Least to greatest. Okay, what I want you to do is go back to this slide, and I want you to answer this question right here. I want you to tell me which is greater or less, 3/5 or 2/3. Remembering that you have to use those steps and come up with your common denominator, and then you can compare your numerators to tell me which one is greater. Okay, so we'll be checking that in class. Please fill out the Google Doc. Remember, it's part of your grade now. Also, make sure you bring these funky looking notes back that are all squished on one page, and then we will be checking for those as well. Alright, y'all have a great night.